Hi class, how are you today? The learning target for today is to evaluate expressions with absolute values. So remember that an absolute value is the distance of a number from zero. Another way to say it is that it always makes a number positive. So let's say we have the absolute value, and that's what these bars mean, is the absolute value. So we have the absolute value of negative 5. That is going to equal positive 5. So the absolute value always makes a number positive. So if we have the absolute value of 7, well, it always makes a number positive. 7 is already positive, so it's 7. So let's say we have this problem. The absolute value of 2 minus 5 plus 3. So the absolute value kind of works as parentheses, where you always have to do those first. So if we do this out, the absolute value of 2 minus 5, well, first let's do 2 minus 5. 2 minus 5 is negative 3. So we still haven't done the absolute value yet. So we have the absolute value of negative 3, and then plus 3 is still on the outside. So we just did the 2 minus 5 part first. Make it so you just have one number inside the absolute value. Then, when you just have one number inside the absolute value, take the absolute value. So the absolute value of negative 3 is positive 3. And then the other plus 3 drops down. 3 plus 3 is 6. Alright, now let's look at this kind of problem. So it wants you to evaluate the expression if x equals 5, y equals negative 2, and z equals negative 6. So what you're going to do is plug in 5 for x, negative 2 for y, and negative 6 for z. Just going to plug those numbers in. So we'll have the absolute value of 2 times 5 minus negative 2 plus 3 times negative 6. Then let's do those multiplications out. So, still have the absolute value, haven't done anything with that yet. So 2 times 5 is 10. And then notice the minus negative 2. We have 2 negatives here, so that will turn into a plus, because 2 negatives make a positive. So this will become a plus 2. And then 3 times negative 6 is negative 18, so minus 18. So now, inside the absolute value, we have to do the 10 plus 2. So 10 plus 2 will give us the absolute value of 12 minus 18. Move this to give us a little bit of room. Then the absolute value of 12, well, 12 is already positive, so it stays positive. So it just becomes 12 minus 18. 12 minus 18 is negative 6. So you might say, well, we did an absolute value problem. How do we end up with a negative number? We just took the absolute value of 12, not the absolute value of the whole thing. So it just happened to be that we were subtracting a bigger number than the one we took the absolute value of. Alright, one more example. So again, we have an evaluate the expression, and x, y, and z are still the same numbers, but we have a different expression to deal with. So again, let's plug what we have for numbers into the variables. So we have negative absolute value, and then z is negative 6. So negative 6, and then minus x is 5, so minus 5, plus y, which is negative 2. So plus negative 2. So still, we have to do what's inside the absolute value first. So that negative on the outside of the absolute value stays on the outside of the absolute value. So we'll have negative absolute value. Negative 6 minus 5 is negative 11. And then plus negative 2, or we can just say minus 2, because it's the same thing. So now let's take the absolute value. Notice, though, we still have that negative in front. So that negative still stays there. So let's put it out, the negative. Then we take the absolute value of negative 11. Because right here, absolute value of negative 11 makes a number positive, so it's 11. Wait, we just took an absolute value and ended up with a negative number. That's only because we had a negative out in front of the absolute value here. So this negative drops down and makes our positive number negative again. And then minus 2 is still there. Negative 11 minus 2 is negative 13. So even though we have absolute value problems, the answer won't always end up in a positive number because we're doing other things to it. Alright, that's it for this lesson today. Please make sure to take notes on the entire lesson, and I will see you next class. Have a good night.